Well, look, I think that this is a very complicated matter.
Okay.
And that we should look at it from all of its dimensions. I like to look at it from the raid on the house of Mr. Ofori-Atta. And I like to state with all emphasis that there was no basis for that raid, and that raid was reckless and amounted to thuggery. And I insist that those who were responsible need to be brought to justice. Now, I say this as somebody who has suffered similar abuse for most part of my life. And I've always said that what happened to me should not happen to anybody, regardless of their political party affiliation. Nobody should be arrested, detained outside the due process. Now, we have been told, initially the special prosecutor indicated that raid of Mr. Ofori-Atta's house was orchestrated by himself in order to provide some basis for attacking the OSP. Now, I'm not sure that the special prosecutor will hold on to the claims that he made at that press conference. But it is obvious that the persons who were responsible for that attack were actually mobilized from national security. They included plainclothes persons, they included persons apparently from the military, and also persons from the police service. I've listened to Mr. Mama Ayaraga, who claims to have spoken to the leadership of the police and the military, who obviously say that this had nothing to do with the services. Okay. I've also read reports in some of the papers that the exercise was led by a gentleman called Richard Jakwa, and that the claim is that he is some coordinator for special operations in national security.
Director of operations.
Yes.
At the how do you call it, national security?
National security.
Yes.
And that he went to the premises with an arrest warrant.
Yes.
It doesn't settle the matters. Even the national security coordinator himself cannot and should not be allowed to enter any premises in this country to effect arrest or search without proper warrants. You understand?
Right.
Even the president cannot do so. So the fact of Mr. Richard Jakwa being an appointee in the national security establishment does not justify this action.
Despite the fact that he had a warrant.
Just relax.
Okay. No, I'm just asking.
Now, the claim is that he went to the premises with a warrant.
Yes.
What warrant? Who issued the warrant? What is the legality of that warrant upon which the house was
raided
and so on? Now, these are questions that cannot be answered in just media banter and so on. These are questions that ought to be answered through the institution of proper investigations, and I insist on it. Okay. You understand? I don't understand for a moment why the majority leader in parliament found it necessary to apologize. First of all, did he apologize because he was party to the raid? Did he apologize because his government ordered the raid? And if he was not party to the raid, it was not ordered by his government, and it was done by rogue elements. Did he lie in his mouth to offer an apology? What we would have expected from the majority leader would have been to call for full-scale investigations into that action. That action is very frightening, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it. That's number one. Now, about Mr. Ofori-Atta and the wanted notice, which was placed on him and so on. Let me make this also very clear. Under the laws of Ghana, nobody accused of a crime can be forced to cooperate with the investigating agencies. So, for example, if you are accused of theft, You can actually inform the police that you have no statement to make, and the police cannot compel you to make a statement. The OSP cannot compel you to answer questions that they put before you and so on. Indeed, you can always tell the investigating authorities to meet you in court, and that is legal, it is legitimate, and so on. So we should not get into the situation where we are now creating the impression that once an allegation has been made against you, you are bound to provide answers to questions which may be raised and so on. I think that position is clearly untenable, and we should understand that very clearly. It will be a violation of the rights of citizens if citizens are compelled to answer or to assist in their own prosecution. You are not supposed to be assisting in your own prosecution. My understanding of the law, and of course you should understand that I'm not a lawyer, my understanding of the law is that even spouses cannot be compelled to give evidence against their partners, you know, in criminal proceedings and so on. So we need to understand that very clearly. Now, this is not to say that Mr. Ofori-Atta is an angel and that no action should be taken against him. Who am I? What do I know? Mr. Ofori-Atta was Minister of Finance for 8 years. Within those 8 years, he demonstrated his immense power. Even when the majority of his own party MPs had decided that it was no good for the job, he continued staying there for a very long time. When he had to be removed as Minister of Finance, he was given a position which was the envy of many people and so on. That's a demonstration of his influence and power and so on. Now, if he had that influence and that power, and many decisions were taken, including the contraction of loans under circumstances which were not all pleasing and so on, he may have questions to answer. But I'm saying that if he has questions to answer, let's use the proper procedure and so on to get him to answer those questions. Now, the crux of the matter is that Mr. Ofori-Atta was invited by the Office of Special Prosecution and he did not show up. On the grounds of ill health, his lawyers produced some kind of a document indicated that he was under medical investigation. The OSP, on the face of the document, was not satisfied that that was a clear testimony of ill health. So what do we do? Mr. Ofori-Atta and his lawyers can provide better documents. You understand? Better documents, verifiable documents, which show that he's ill. And indeed, if he's not well, he cannot be compelled to travel and to come back to the country. So it's just a question of producing better documents about his health, which were not produced in the first instance. Now, this morning, I read a transcription of an interview with Meet FM by Mr. Gary Nimaku. I hope I got the name
Yes,
right.
Gary Nimaku.
Yeah. Who is supposed to be one of the leaders of the legal teams of the new.
In fact, he's the head of their legal team.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And he makes the point that the NPP press conference of the matter was rushed. And that if he had been consulted, he would not have advised the NPP to hold that press conference. He was saying that that press conference was hurried, it was immature, and so on. That's a leading member of the New Patriotic Party, indeed, head of the legal department of the party who is speaking. And he thought that the whole press conference amounted to political grandstanding. You understand? These are strong words. Strong words. Now, I think that there's no Ghanaian worthy of that title, the title Ghanaian, who would oppose investigations into malfeasance, who would have objections to setting the record straight as far as the governance of this country is concerned. I mean, if you become a minister, you take an oath. You have to abide by that oath. You understand? If you become a member of parliament, you take an oath.
Sure.
And you have to abide by that oath. As we sit here, this country is in very deep crisis. I mean, this morning, all three of us were talking about the state of the cocoa industry. It is frightening. We have a situation where for the first time, cocoa production has gone down by more than 50%. For the first time, the Cocoa Marketing Board could not even secure, the syndicated loan for the purchases of cocoa and so on. Very frightening situation in the cocoa sector, which is supposed to be one of the mainstays of the national economy. But elsewhere, I mean, I'm hearing about state corporations whose level of indebtedness exceeds 300 million and so on. Frightening. Those who took us to this point must explain to us, they must answer, serious questions. And if they are found to have acted criminally, leading to this mess, we have to hold them accountable. So it's a question of balancing the principle, the legal and constitutional principles and so on, and also the duty of the state to exact justice and the duty of individuals to account for their stewardship. It's a tricky balance, but we have to balance it well. And in the balancing, it should not lead to the violation of individual rights. That's all my point.
True.
Nothing more.
Just a couple of questions, though, Kwesi. You talked about the fact that nobody can be compelled when an allegation is made against them to assist in investigations. It is entirely your right to say you will not. But the OSP has said it time and again that the case of Ofori-Atta is not a case of him being a person of interest. When you're a person of interest, you have all kinds of rights that you can exercise. But it says in this case, Ofori-Atta is actually a suspect. So they are looking for the man. They want to arrest him and charge him before they can go to court. And so when people raise the issues about why can't you, for instance, speak to him digitally or say virtually? And if you have any questions you want to ask him, go ahead and do it. Or why don't you even go to America? Go to Mayo Clinic and sit down with him and have a talk with him. And they came to say, look, for instance, in the case of Airbus, there were persons of interest. And so they had to travel all the way abroad to go and interview them. But in this case, the man, he's a suspect. They want to arrest him physically. Arrest him and charge him and take him to court. Of course, when you are being charged, you have the right of Miranda rights. You have the right to say nothing. But here they want to arrest him physically.
In discussing delicate issues such as this one of the most difficult things is the choice of words.
Right.
Because the right choice of words may lead us astray, may lead us into an alley and so on. So we have to be careful. But you see, my brother, don't we know about trials in absentia?
But that's after the person has been charged.
No.
According to the lawyers. I'm not a lawyer.
There are trials in absentia. I'm aware of trials in absentia. And I didn't know that you have to be charged before you are tried in absentia.
Yes, you have to be arrested and charged.
No. There are many cases in which people have been tried in absentia when they have not been charged. Well, you have to be charged.
Yes.
But when they have not been arrested.
Yes.
So trials in absentia are allowed. Okay.
Well.
Now again, I think that one of the things that we may have to be dealing with, as we move forward, has to do with cost of investigations and cost of prosecutions.
Okay.
It's a very important matter.
Right.
And it has come up in the decision of the new Attorney General to drop charges against people like Dr. Opuni and so on.
Yes.
Look, the prosecuting authorities in this country have to bear in mind that cost of investigation and cost of prosecution, to the extent that it is possible, ought to be lowered. So if you have a situation where former appointees are living in London and they are living in Paris and so on, and our prosecutors and investigators have to travel all over the world in order to interview them and so on, I just wonder what the cost would be like. to the state.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering whether that is the most appropriate means, of doing that.
Okay.
As for today, we are talking today, and there are technological innovations which enable us to talk to people all over the world. Even WhatsApp platforms can be used to speak to people and so on. But any accomplished investigator would also tell you that talking through phones, and other devices and so on, is not the same in an investigation.
Sure.
Because there's so many things that the investigator is looking for, which are not just in the words of the person. The investigator is also looking at the disposition of the person.
Body language.
Everything.
Yeah.
You understand? So that may not be the best way of carrying out investigations. But you see, in whatever we do, there's a hierarchy of choices. There's a hierarchy of choices, and whatever choice we make ought to be informed by so many different considerations. I am not the one to tell the special prosecutor how to conduct his job. I don't have the competence. Of course, as a citizen, I have a right to complain when I think that he's not doing his work properly and so on.
Absolutely.
But I don't have the right to be instructing the special prosecutor on how to technically conduct his investigations and so on. My concern has to be with the violation of rights or non-violation of rights of citizens and so on. And I want to leave it there. I don't want to proceed any further.
All right.